The Nix Volari warships descended from the sky like metallic locusts, their obsidian hulls reflecting fractured sunlight as they positioned themselves above Earth's major cities. There was no warning, no diplomatic overture, just the sudden appearance of 300 vessels that cast kilometer-long shadows across the landscapes below. Commander Elisanda Kovac stood on the roof of the United Earth Defense Headquarters in Geneva, watching the nearest ship hover with impossible silence. Above Lake Geneva, the wind whipped her copper hair across her face as she raised her tactical binoculars. "They're deploying something," she said into her comm unit. "Get me visuals from all major cities. Now!" Within seconds, her neural implant flooded with images from around the globe. Rio, Tokyo, Cairo, Sydney, all showing the same thing. Cylindrical pods descending from the warships, landing with precision in city centers. When the first pod opened, in Times Square, the feed from New York showed a 9-foot-tall being stepping out. Its skin was pale lavender, stretched tight over an exoskeletal frame. 4 arms ended in hands with too many fingers. The being raised what appeared to be some kind of staff, and projection erupted into the air, a 3-dimensional broadcast of another of its kind, this one adorned with what could only be described as regalia. People of Earth, the projection, spoke in perfect, unaccented English. "I am Grand Admiral Vekrath of the Nix Volari Empire. Your planet now falls under our protection and governance. Resistance is unnecessary and ill-advised. We have studied your species for decades. We know your weaknesses. Your militaries will stand down. Your governments will cede authority. This is not a negotiation." Elisanda's comm unit erupted with panicked chatter from world leaders and military commands. In the background, she could hear President Ortega demanding options. "Cut the feed," she ordered, silencing the cacophony in her mind. She turned to her second-in-command, Major Renault. Dravid. His dark eyes were unreadable, but the tension in his jaw told her everything. "They've already neutralized our satellite defenses," he reported. "Nuclear deterrents are offline. They've somehow accessed and disabled our entire orbital defense network." "That's impossible," Elisanda whispered, but she knew it wasn't. The Lazarus Protocol, a classified defense system buried 3 kilometers beneath the Antarctic ice, had warned them 6 months ago. The quantum probability computers had calculated a 97.8% chance of hostile first contact within the year. No one had believed it except her division. Her neural implant pinged with an urgent message from Dr. Octavia Kwan at Lazarus Base. Operation Phoenix ready. Awaiting authorization. A deafening boom made Elisanda look up. One of the smaller cities, Zurich, just visible on the horizon, was enveloped in a purple energy field. From this distance, it looked like a dome of violet fire. "They're containing the Swiss Army's counterattack," Renault said grimly. "Reports coming in. Total communications blackout inside the field." Elisande made her decision. "Send authorization to Kwan, activate Phoenix, and get me a secure channel to the resistance cells. All of them." "The sleeper program? But we haven't finished testing." "We're out of time, Major." She watched as more pods descended from the ships. "They think they know our weaknesses. They think we'll surrender." A cold smile formed on her lips. "They have no idea what humans are capable of." When backed into a corner. As Renault hurried to comply, Elisanda's implant flashed with confirmation from Antarctica. Deep beneath the ice, ancient machinery, reverse-engineered from a crashed alien scout ship found in 1958, hummed to life. Across the globe, 5,000 seemingly ordinary humans received a signal that activated dormant neural modifications. The Nix Volari had studied humans for decades, but they'd missed the most important fact. Earth had been preparing for this moment for over 60 years. Arik Voss felt the activation signal like electricity through his veins. One moment he was standing in line at a coffee shop in Berlin. The next, he was on his knees, memories flooding his consciousness. Training sessions he'd never remembered having, combat skills he shouldn't possess, knowledge of weapons that officially didn't exist. Around him, 3 others in the cafe reacted similarly. They made eye contact, a silent understanding passing between them. Without a word, they abandoned their civilian pretenses and moved with newfound purpose toward the exit. Outside, a Nix Valari pod had just touched down in Alexanderplatz. The aliens were deploying what looked like floating surveillance drones. When Arik and his newfound comrades approached, "Barrier team in position," a woman whispered beside him. He recognized her now, Lyra Ezalt, demolitions expert. The Phoenix program had placed them in proximity to each other for precisely this moment. The tallest alien, clearly the unit commander, noticed them and raised a device. Arik felt a pressure in his mind, an attempted neural override. The Phoenix implants countered it automatically. The alien's 4 eyes widened in what must have been surprise. "Now," Arik said. Lyra tossed what appeared to be a handful of sand into the air. The nanites activated on contact with the atmosphere, forming a disruption field that severed the aliens' communication with their ship. The other 2 Phoenix agents, brothers, Kaito and Riku Takeshi, deployed the compact pulse weapons that had been disguised as ordinary objects in their possession. The aliens reacted with impressive speed, but they were clearly unprepared for organized resistance. Within 90 seconds, the squad was neutralized, and the Phoenix team had acquired their first set of Nix Valari technology. "Containment team approaching," Kaito reported, scanning with his newly activated sensory implants. "Military, not Phoenix. They'll try to establish a perimeter," Arik said, already interfacing with the alien command device. "We need to be gone before they arrive." Riku was examining one of the alien weapons. "These are designed for crowd control, not military engagement. They expected civilian targets only." Arik nodded. "They thought we'd be easy to intimidate." The alien device in his hand finally yielded to his probing, displaying schematics of the ship hovering above Berlin. They were wrong. Across the globe, similar scenes played out as Phoenix operatives awoke to their true purpose. In Sydney, marine biologist Zaria Kalami led a team that hijacked an alien shuttle. In Cairo, architect Nasir Demir used his knowledge of ancient tunnels to move resistance fighters past alien checkpoints. In Rio, physicist Isla Reeves had already begun reverse engineering alien technology within hours of the invasion. At Lazarus Base, Dr. Octavia Kwan monitored the global resistance network with growing optimism. 5,000 Phoenix operatives were now active, with 60% having made successful first contact with Nix Valari forces. More importantly, the aliens seemed genuinely surprised by the coordinated response. Her display pinged with an incoming communication from Geneva. "Status report," Commander Kovac demanded, her holographic image flickering slightly. "Better than expected," Octavia replied. "Phase 1 complete. Phoenix operatives have secured Nix Valari tech samples from 83 locations. Initial analysis suggests their technological edge is narrower than we feared." "The Zurich containment field?" "Team. Helios is on it. They've identified the generator frequency." Elisanda nodded. "And Project Prometheus?" Octavia hesitated. "It's ready. But the side effects—" "I know the risks," Elisanda cut her off. "Begin distribution to all Phoenix teams. Priority to those with direct access to Nixi Valari command. Ships." After the communication ended, Octavia turned to the sealed laboratory section where Project Prometheus was housed. The alien biological agent, harvested from the Antarctic crash site, had been modified to work with human physiology. It would grant Phoenix operatives temporary enhancements, increased strength, accelerated healing, heightened senses. What Elisanda hadn't mentioned was that those enhancements came at a cost. The test subjects had all burned out within days, their bodies unable to sustain the alien biotech integration. But desperate times called for desperate measures. And if humanity was to have any chance against the Nix-Valari Empire, they needed every advantage they could get, no matter how temporary. Grand Admiral Veckrath stared at the holographic display with 4 eyes narrowed in consternation. The invasion of the primitive planet designated Earth was proceeding according to standard protocols, yet resistance was anomalous. "Explain," he demanded of Sub-Commander Nihilith. The junior officer's secondary arms twitched nervously. "The humans are displaying capabilities inconsistent with our intelligence, Admiral. Targeted resistance cells have neutralized 17 deployment pods. We've lost contact with surveillance outposts in regions designated Europe and East Asia." Impossible. Our intel indicated their military technology was at least 3 generations behind ours. "That appears to be partially incorrect," Nihilith admitted. "While their conventional forces remain as expected, we've encountered individuals with advanced implant technology and knowledge of our systems." Veckrath's exoskeletal ridges flared with anger. "The Directorate assured me this species was isolated, no contact with galactic civilization." "That remains true, Admiral. These technologies appear to be independently developed. And there's something else?" Nihilith hesitated. "The resistance fighters are displaying biological enhancements, strength, reflexes, healing capabilities beyond baseline human norms." The observation chamber fell silent as Veckrath processed this information. The Nix-Valari Empire had conquered 17 worlds in the last century, and none had provided meaningful resistance past the first planetary rotation. Humans were supposed to be primitive, fractious, easy to subjugate. Yet here they were, 12 hours into the invasion, and Imperial forces were encountering organized, effective opposition. "Initiate the purification protocol," Veckrath finally ordered. "Deploy atmospheric processors to all major population centers." "Admiral," Nihilith's voice dropped to a concerned whisper, "the Directorate specifically prohibited purification for this world. They want the planet's biosphere intact." "The Directorate is not here," Veckrath snapped. "I will not lose ships and soldiers to these primitives. The humans have forfeited the right to gentle subjugation." Meanwhile, in the ruins of what had been downtown Los Angeles, Maeve Quillen led a squad of Phoenix operatives through rubble-strewn streets. The Prometheus enhancement coursed through her veins, making her aware of every sound, every scent, every subtle movement around them. "Target ahead," she whispered, knowing her team's enhanced hearing would catch it. "Loading bay of the convention center." Through the scope of her modified rifle, she observed Nix-Valari soldiers unloading large, cylindrical devices from a transport. The intel from Sydney had been correct. These were the atmospheric processors Eric's team had identified from the captured alien schematics. "Chemical or biological?" asked Dante Rivera, the team's science specialist. Maeve adjusted her scope. "Neither. Energy signatures suggest terraforming tech. They're going to change our atmosphere." "To what?" Kenji Mori asked, his fingers already flying over his tactical pad, relaying the information to Lazarus Base. "Based on Nix-Valari physiology?" Dante analyzed the readings. "Higher nitrogen content, trace elements of compounds toxic to humans. They're making Earth more comfortable for themselves and uninhabitable for us." Maeve made her decision. "New objective, capture that technology intact. Lazarus needs to analyze it. Kenji, create a diversion at the north entrance. Dante, you're with me. We'll approach from below. Convention Center has maintenance tunnels." As they prepared to move, Maeve felt a sharp pain in her temples, a warning sign. The Prometheus enhancement was already taking its toll. According to Dr. Kwan's briefing, she had maybe 48 hours before cellular degradation became critical. It would have to be enough. The team split up, with Kenji moving to create his diversion. Maeve and Dante descended into the maintenance tunnels, Navigating by memory, another gift of their enhancement. Command update, Dante whispered as they moved. Phoenix teams have secured control of military installations in 7 countries. The president is safe at Cheyenne Mountain. Resistance networks are forming worldwide. And the Nix Volari response? Escalating. They've begun planetary bombardment of unpopulated areas. Warning shots. They reached a junction beneath the convention center's main floor. Above them, they could hear the heavy footsteps of the aliens and the whine of their technology. Remember, Maeve said, checking her weapon, we need one of those processors intact. Dante nodded, then tensed. Do you smell that? Maeve did. A sweet chemical odor that hadn't been there moments before. Her enhanced senses screamed danger just as a viscous liquid began dripping from the ceiling. They've adapted, she realized with horror. They're flushing the tunnels. They had seconds to make a new plan before the Nix Volari chemical agent reached them. The viscous substance dripped closer as Maeve's mind raced through options. Her Prometheus-enhanced cognition calculated trajectories, chemical compositions, structural weaknesses, all in fractions of seconds. Pressure seal, she ordered, pulling a device from her tactical vest and slapping it against the tunnel wall. The nanite construct expanded instantly, forming an airtight barrier just as the alien chemicals splashed down behind them. That buys us minutes at best, Dante warned, his eyes now glowing faintly, a side effect of the Prometheus agent interacting with his unique genetic makeup. Maeve nodded, already moving. New approach. We're going loud. They reached a maintenance hatch that led directly into the convention center's subfloor. Instead of the careful infiltration they'd planned, Maeve pressed her palm against the metal door. The Prometheus enhancements allowed her to channel her body's bioelectric field, shorting out the lock mechanism. They emerged into chaos. Kenji's diversion had worked better than expected. A series of electromagnetic pulses had disabled the Nix Volari personal shields, leaving them vulnerable to the conventional military forces that had joined the fight. Human soldiers were engaged in firefights throughout the building, but the aliens were regrouping quickly. There, Dante pointed to a secured area where 3 of the cylindrical atmospheric processors stood. 6 Nix Volari guards formed a defensive perimeter around them. Maeve activated her tactical overlay, another Phoenix implant, and targeted the structural supports above the aliens. One precise shot from her railgun brought down a section of ceiling, disorienting 4 of the guards. Cover me, she ordered, then sprinted toward the processors while Dante provided suppressing fire. A Nix Volari officer spotted her and raised a weapon that emitted a high-pitched whine. Maeve felt her muscles seize as the sonic attack targeted her nervous system. The bee. Pain was excruciating, but the Prometheus enhancement allowed her to push through it. She reached the alien, moving inside its guard before it could adjust the weapon. A swift strike to what she hoped was a vulnerable joint dropped the creature to the ground. Maeve! Dante called out in warning. She turned to see the remaining guard activating one of the processors. Emerald light pulsed along its surface as it hummed to life. Acting on instinct more than knowledge, Maeve ripped a component from the fallen alien's armor, what Intel had identified as a personal atmospheric regulator, and jammed it into the processor's control panel. The conflicting technologies sparked and sputtered, causing the processor to shut down. We need to move these, she said, already working to disconnect the nearest cylinder from its power source. Kenji, status? Her comms crackled. North entrance secure. Military reinforcements arriving. You've got 10 minutes before they bring in heavier forces. Working with Prometheus-enhanced strength, Maeve and Dante disconnected 2 of the processors and began moving them toward the exit. The third had been damaged in the firefight, but Dante managed to extract its central control module. This should be enough for Dr. Kwan to analyze, he said, securing the component. As they moved through the convention center, they encountered pockets of resistance, both human military engaging the aliens and civilians who had armed themselves with whatever they could find. The sight stirred something in Maeve's heart. Humanity wasn't just surviving, it was fighting back with everything it had. They reached the extraction point just as a massive explosion rocked the building. Looking up, Maeve saw something that shouldn't have been possible. A human fighter jet had somehow penetrated the Nix Volari ship's defenses and was now firing directly at its propulsion system. Phoenix Team Orion, Dante identified, checking his tactical feed. They deployed the countermeasures developed from the Sydney Tech capture. The massive alien ship listed to one side, its gravitational systems failing. As it drifted away from the city center, emergency shuttles began evacuating its crew. "They're retreating," Kenji said in disbelief as he joined them. "Tactically withdrawing," Maeve corrected. "They'll be back with different approaches." She winced as another wave of pain shot through her body, the Prometheus enhancement breaking down her cellular structure. "But we'll be ready for them." As military transports arrived to secure the captured alien technology, Maeve received a priority communication from Commander Kovac herself. "The atmospheric processors you captured may have just saved millions of lives." Elisanda's voice was tight with exhaustion, but carried a note of hope. "Similar devices were being deployed globally. We're now coordinating a worldwide effort to neutralize them." "What about the ships?" Maeve asked. 3 confirmed kills globally. The rest are pulling back to higher orbit." A pause. "This isn't victory, Agent Quillen, but it's something they never expected. Proof that humanity can hurt them." As the communication ended, Maeve looked up at the sky where distant points of light marked the Nix Volari fleet. The battle for Earth had only just begun, but for the first time since the invasion, she allowed herself to believe they might actually win it. Dr. Octavia Kwan hadn't slept in 72 hours. Her lab at Lazarus Base buzzed with frantic activity, as scientists and engineers worked to reverse engineer the captured Nix Volari technology. The atmospheric processor lay partially disassembled on the main analysis table, its alien components cataloged and scanned. "It's elegant," she admitted, studying the quantum entanglement core that powered the device. "Their terraforming approach uses targeted molecular restructuring rather than brute force atmospheric injection. Can we repurpose it?" Commander Kovac asked from the holographic display. Her image flickered occasionally, a result of the Nix Volari's ongoing attempts to disrupt Earth's communication networks. "Better," Octavia replied, allowing herself a thin smile. "We can reverse it." She gestured to simulations running on adjacent screens. The processors were designed to gradually alter Earth's atmosphere to Nix Volari specifications. "We've reconfigured the captured units to target their ships instead. When activated, they'll create localized atmospheric bubbles that are toxic to Nix Volari physiology, but harmless to humans." Elisande's eyes widened slightly. "Weaponizing their own technology against them." "Exactly. But deployment is the challenge. We need to get these modified processors close enough to their command ships to be effective." "Leave that to me," Elisanda said. "Phoenix teams are coordinating with what's left of our conventional forces for a counteroffensive." As the commander's hologram disappeared, Octavia turned to her assistant, Dr. Farrokhzad. "Status on the Prometheus enhancement?" The younger scientist's expression grew grim. "Cellular degradation is accelerating in all subjects. Agent Quillen's team is showing advanced symptoms. Organ failure will begin within 48 hours. Octavia closed her eyes briefly. 5,000 Phoenix agents, all willingly accepting a death sentence to give humanity a fighting chance. "Keep working on a stabilization protocol," she ordered. "There has to be a way to reverse the degradation." High above Earth, the Nix Volari command fleet had withdrawn to strategic positions. In the flagship's war chamber, Grand Admiral Vekrath faced an unprecedented situation, a holographic projection of the Directorate itself. The 3 members of the ruling council rarely communicated directly with field commanders. "Your invasion has been compromised," said the central figure, its features obscured by traditional masking light. "Explain your failure, Admiral." Vekrath struggled to maintain composure. The humans possess technology inconsistent with our intelligence reports. They have enhanced soldiers with neural implants and biological modifications. They've captured and adapted our equipment with impossible speed. Because they've had access to our technology before, said the figure on the right. Directorate. Archives indicate a scout ship was lost in that sector 70 Earth years ago. One scout ship couldn't provide this level of advancement, Veckrath protested. Unless they had help, suggested the third figure. Admiral, your new orders are to capture, not kill. We need live specimens, particularly these enhanced humans. The genetic modifications they're using bear disturbing similarities to Protectorate. Biotechnology. Veckrath's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture of shock. The Protectorate was destroyed 5 millennia ago. So we believed, said the central figure. Capture their leaders, learn what they know. The harvest can wait. As the transmission ended, Veckrath turned to his tactical display. The humans had regrouped faster than any species the Empire had ever encountered. Their militaries were coordinating globally now, and the mysterious enhanced soldiers continued to disrupt Imperial operations at every turn. If these humans did, indeed, possess Protectorate knowledge, if they were somehow connected to the ancient enemy that had nearly destroyed the Empire in its infancy, then this insignificant blue planet represented a threat far greater than anyone had imagined. Prepare the harvesters, he ordered Subcommander Nyleth. Not for atmospheric processing, but for ground deployment. I want capture teams in every major human population center within 6 hours. And the enhanced humans? Veckrath's exoskeletal ridges flared. Priority targets! Bring them to me alive! In the ruins of what had once been Shanghai's financial district, Phoenix agent Orion Xiao felt the Prometheus enhancement failing. His vision blurred periodically, and the taste of blood filled his mouth, internal hemorrhaging beginning. Still, his team had accomplished their objective. The modified atmospheric processor was in position, hidden within an abandoned subway tunnel directly beneath the hovering Nix Volari vessel. When activated, it would create a toxic bubble that would force the aliens to either retreat or asphyxiate. Charge at 90%, reported his teammate, Indira Nayak. The former quantum engineer had reconfigured the processor's power core to amplify its effect. Ready on your mark. Orion checked the tactical overlay displaying Allied positions. Human resistance fighters had cleared civilians from a 10-block radius. Military units were positioned to move in once the Nix Volari ship was disabled. Mark! Indira activated the device. For several seconds, nothing seemed to happen. Then, a distortion rippled through the air, like heat waves rising from hot pavement, but moving sideways and upward. The effect expanded rapidly, engulfing the lower portion of the alien ship. Almost immediately, alarms began blaring from the vessel. Emergency hatches opened as Nix Volari crew members attempted to escape the suddenly toxic environment. Many collapsed before reaching evacuation craft. It's working, Orion whispered, allowing himself a moment of satisfaction before another wave of pain racked his body. The ship's engines flared as it attempted to rise above the effect, but the atmospheric bubble expanded faster, enveloping the entire vessel. System failures cascaded across its hull, and secondary explosions bloomed from within its structure. All teams, move in! Orion ordered through the resistance network. Secure any technology and survivors. As human forces converged on the crippled ship, his tactical feed updated with similar reports from around the globe. 6 Nix Volari vessels were under simultaneous attack using the same method. The counteroffensive had begun. Orion felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to see Indira watching him with concern. They both knew what the Prometheus enhancement was doing to their bodies. They had days at most. Worth it? She asked simply. He looked up at the alien ship, one of hundreds, yet its imminent capture represented something profound. Humanity wasn't just resisting, it was pushing back. Absolutely worth it, he answered. The command bunker beneath Geneva. hummed with activity as Commander Elisanda Kovac reviewed the holographic war map. 12 days into what was now being called the Nix-Valari War, humanity had achieved what no other species in recorded galactic history had managed, forcing an Imperial fleet into defensive positions. 9 ships captured, 14 destroyed, reported Major Dravid. The modified atmospheric processors have exceeded expectations. And the rest of their fleet? Elisanda asked, maintaining high orbit positions. They've changed tactics, smaller, faster raids rather than occupation forces. They're abducting humans, specifically targeting Phoenix operatives. Elisande studied the tactical display. The aliens' strategy had indeed shifted dramatically. Rather than attempting planetary subjugation, they now seemed focused on capturing enhanced humans. They're afraid of what we know, she concluded. The Antarctic ship. It must have been more significant than we realized. A priority alert flashed across her neural interface. Dr. Kwan was requesting immediate communication. Put her through, Elisanda ordered. Octavia's hologram appeared, her expression both exhausted and exhilarated. Commander, we've made a breakthrough. The Nix-Valari database recovered from the Shanghai ship contained historical records, star charts, species catalogs, conquest histories. We've found something extraordinary. The display shifted to show ancient alien text and images. The Nix-Valari Empire wasn't always the dominant force in this galaxy. 5,000 years ago, they nearly fell to an alliance called the Protectorate, a coalition of species united against imperial expansion. What happened to them? According to these records, the Empire eventually prevailed through biological warfare. They engineered a pathogen that targeted the dominant Protectorate species. Octavia's image returned. Commander, the Prometheus enhancement? The biotechnology we recovered from the Antarctic crash site? It's Protectorate in origin. Elisande felt her blood run cold. You're saying our enhanced agents are using technology from this ancient enemy of the Empire? Not just using it. The genetic markers in the enhancement suggest something more profound. Octavia hesitated. The ship that crashed in Antarctica wasn't just carrying Protectorate technology. It was carrying Protectorate refugees, and they interbred with early humans. The implications staggered Elisande. Our Phoenix agents are activating dormant genetic potential that's been in our DNA for millennia. That's why the Prometheus enhancement works at all and why it's killing them. The integration is incomplete. Can you fix it? With the new Nix-Valari medical data, yes, we've synthesized a stabilizing agent. We can save the remaining Phoenix operatives if we act quickly. Hope surged through Elisanda for the first time in days. Do it, and prep a briefing for global leadership. They need to understand what we're really fighting for. In orbit above Earth, the Nix-Valari flagship trembled as its engines powered up for the first time in days. Grand Admiral Vekrath had made his decision. The captured human specimens had confirmed his worst fears. The Protectorate legacy lived on, embedded in human genetics. Begin the purification protocol, he ordered. Full planetary sterilization. Subcommander Nyleth's secondary arms twitched in alarm. Admiral, the Directorate specifically ordered. The Directorate does not understand the threat, Vekrath snarled. These humans are Protectorate descendants. If allowed to fully awaken their genetic potential, they could restart the ancient war. Everything we've built would be at risk. On his command, the remaining fleet vessels moved into formation. Weapon systems designed to crack planetary crusts powered up. After the surface was rendered uninhabitable, specialized Imperial teams would recover any technology of value. The loss of a resource-rich world was regrettable, but necessary. Weapons at full charge, reported the tactical officer. Targeting planetary population centers. Fire. Maeve Quillen stood on the observation deck of the captured Nix-Valari vessel designated Horizon. Dr. Kwan's stabilizing agent had halted the cellular degradation caused by the Prometheus enhancement, giving her and other Phoenix operatives a new lease on life, and with it, a permanent connection to their enhanced abilities. Around her, a crew of human scientists and military personnel operated alien technology with growing confidence. The ship, one of 9 now under human control, had been repurposed as an orbital defense platform. "Multiple energy signatures detected," called out the sensor operator. "The Nix Volari fleet is powering weapons." Maeve's tactical overlay immediately displayed the threat assessment. "They're going for planetary bombardment. Alert all captured vessels and ground defenses." The next few minutes passed in controlled chaos as humanity's improvised space fleet maneuvered to intercept. The 9 captured ships were vastly outnumbered, but they had one critical advantage. Their human crews understood Nix Volari tactics and technology in ways the aliens never anticipated. "Incoming!" shouted the tactical officer. The first volley from the Imperial fleet sliced through Earth's upper atmosphere, only to be met by targeted atmospheric disruption fields. The modified processors, now deployed in orbital platforms, created bubbles of energy that diffused the worst of the alien weapons. Still, some attacks penetrated the defenses. From her position, Maeve could see bright flashes on the planet's surface where Imperial energy weapons found their targets. "Casualties," she demanded. "Minimal," came the reply. "Early warning systems got most civilians to shelters. Return fire." The Horizon's main weapons, designed by the Nix Volari to devastate planetary targets, were now aimed at their former masters. Lances of coherent energy struck the nearest Imperial vessel, overwhelming its shields and piercing its hull. Similar scenes played out across Earth orbit as humanity's captured fleet engaged the Imperials. What they lacked in numbers, they made up for in surprise and determination. The Nix Volari had never faced an enemy using their own technology against them with such effectiveness. On the Horizon's command deck, Maeve received a priority transmission from Lazarus Base. "Phoenix Protocol Final Phase authorized," came Commander Kovach's voice. "Deploy the package." Maeve nodded to her weapons officer. "Launch the seed ships." From the Horizon's launch bay, 5 smaller vessels emerged, hybrids of human and Nix Volari technology. Each carried a precious cargo, terraforming processors modified with Protectorate biotechnology, along with teams of Phoenix operatives. As the seed ships accelerated away from Earth, using the battle as cover, Maeve allowed herself a grim smile. The Nix Volari had come to Earth expecting easy conquest. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant. Not just humanity's industrial and military potential, but the dormant genetic legacy of their ancient enemies. The Empire had attacked first, never expecting Earth to fight back. They certainly never expected that their invasion would ultimately lead to their own downfall. Because the seed ships weren't fleeing, they were heading toward the heart of the Nix Volari Empire, carrying with them the means to awaken other worlds where the Protectorate bloodline might slumber. The war had only just begun. 1 year later, Commander Elisanda Kovach stood before the United Earth Council in what had once been the United Nations General Assembly Hall. The chamber had been rebuilt after the Nix Volari bombardment, its new architecture incorporating elements of both human and alien design, a fitting symbol for humanity's transformation. "The Horizon Deep Space Array has confirmed it," she announced to the assembled leaders. "The first 3 seed ships have successfully reached their destinations. Colonial worlds on the Empire's periphery are reporting uprisings as we awaken. Dormant Protectorate genetic markers in compatible species." The council chamber erupted in applause and murmurs of approval. On the main display, tactical maps showed the Nix Volari Empire's borders now facing challenges on multiple fronts as the rebellion spread. "And the Imperial counter-response?" asked President Ortega. "Limited and disorganized," Elisanda replied. "The destruction of their main fleet at Earth was more significant than we initially realized. They lost not just ships, but much of their senior command structure, including Grand Admiral Vekrath." She gestured to another display showing the growing Earth Defense Fleet, now numbering over 50 vessels, most captured and repurposed from the Empire. More importantly, the Directorate appears to be in internal conflict. Our intelligence suggests that some factions favor negotiation rather than continued warfare. They fear the complete awakening of Protectorate bloodlines throughout the galaxy. Dr. Octavia Kwan joined Elisande at the podium. The genetic stabilization program has been successfully implemented for all Phoenix operatives. Second-generation enhancements are now being offered to compatible volunteers. Within a decade, we estimate that 20% of humanity will carry activated Protectorate genes. President Ortega nodded thoughtfully. And the long-term implications? We're evolving, Octavia said, her eyes reflecting the holographic displays surrounding them. But not randomly. The Protectorate genes were dormant in our DNA for millennia, waiting for the right catalyst. The Nyx-Velari invasion provided that catalyst. She expanded a genetic model that rotated slowly above the council chamber. What makes this truly remarkable is that the Protectorate wasn't simply hiding among our ancestors, they were guiding our evolution. The genetic markers we've activated don't just enhance our physical and mental capabilities, they're unlocking technological understanding that would have taken us centuries to develop independently. Elisande stepped forward again. The Nyx-Velari made a critical mistake. They assumed Earth was just another primitive world to harvest. They didn't realize they were attacking the hidden legacy of their ancient enemies, and in doing so, they've awakened something that has been waiting 5,000 years for its moment. President Ortega leaned forward. And what becomes of humanity in this process? Do we risk losing ourselves as these alien genes assert themselves? On the contrary, Octavia replied, the integration is remarkably harmonious. The Protectorate, genes enhance rather than override our human characteristics. What emerges is still fundamentally human, but more. Enhanced intelligence, longevity, regenerative capabilities, and most importantly, an intuitive understanding of technologies that previously seemed like magic to us. Maeve Quillen, now fleet commander of Earth's growing armada, joined them on the platform. The Prometheus enhancement had left subtle marks on her appearance. Her eyes had a faint luminescence, and patterns like circuitry occasionally shimmered beneath her skin when she moved. Our captured Nyx-Velari databases have given us a comprehensive map of their empire, she reported. 17 core systems, over 300 colonial worlds, many populated by subjugated species who would welcome liberation. And you believe we're ready to take the fight to them? Asked a council member from the African Union. Maeve's expression was resolute. They brought war to our doorstep. Now we're bringing liberation to theirs. She activated her own display, showing the movements of Earth's newly commissioned exploration and military vessels. Phoenix teams have already established contact with resistance movements on 6 Imperial worlds. 3 former Nyx-Velari warships have defected to our cause after their crews, members of conquered species, overthrew their commanders. This isn't just about survival anymore, Elisande added. It's about justice. The Empire has destroyed or enslaved countless civilizations. We have the chance to end their reign of terror, and perhaps rebuild something better in its place. The council chamber fell silent as the implications settled over the assembled leaders. In just over a year, humanity had gone from fighting for its very existence to contemplating its role in galactic politics. There's something else you should see, Octavia said, her voice quieter now. She entered a command sequence and the main display shifted to show a distant star system far beyond the borders of the Nyx-Velari Empire. Our long-range sensors detected this 8 days ago. The image zoomed in on a massive structure orbiting a blue giant star, clearly artificial, clearly ancient and unmistakably active. Is that, President Ortega began, a Protectorate installation, Octavia confirmed, not destroyed, as the Nyx-Velari believed, but dormant, and it's responding to signals from our seed ships. Elisande's expression was solemn but determined. We're not just fighting an empire, we're reclaiming a legacy, one that the universe thought was lost forever. She looked out over the assembled representatives of Earth's nations. When the empire attacked first, they didn't expect Earth to fight back. They certainly never imagined that their invasion would awaken the descendants of their ancient enemies, or that humans would carry the torch of a civilization they thought they had extinguished. Millennia ago, Maeve stepped forward, her enhanced eyes glowing slightly brighter with conviction. The Nyx Valari Empire is about to learn a lesson that humanity has demonstrated throughout our history. When backed into a corner, we don't just survive. We emerge stronger than before. As if on cue, the chamber's lights dimmed momentarily as a massive shadow passed overhead. The silhouette of Earth's newest vessel, the EDF Phoenix Rising, departing on its maiden voyage to the stars. Built using a fusion of human ingenuity and awakened protectorate knowledge, it represented not just humanity's resistance, but its renaissance. The Nyx Valari had intended to harvest Earth. Instead, they had planted the seeds of their own destruction and humanity's ascension to the stars.